Welcome to Brewers Daily, your daily spot for Milwaukee Brewers content here as we go throughout the offseason and get you ready for the 2026 championship season. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to as the winter meetings are coming up next week. We got a nice little award for one of the Brewers' top prospects, Jesus Made. We got a Hall of Fame vote coming up as well, and I want to dive into another potential trade target here for the Milwaukee Brewers because as the winter meetings are coming up next week, that's where we're going to see things really get hot and heavy with this offseason. So for the Milwaukee Brewers, in terms of expectations, kind of looking ahead, I'm not expecting too much in terms of major news. Now, we can see some rumors. We could see some minor signings here from the Brewers. In general, we should see a lot of major signings. But for the Brewers, I mean, really kind of the big news that's going to come out. We'll see what happens in the Rule 5 draft. We'll see what happens with the MLB draft lottery. I mean, the Brewers aren't eligible to win the draft lottery, but we'll kind of see how all that shakes out, where the Brewers draft picks do ultimately end up being, which will be great to see. Just kind of seeing what kind of rumors come out and what kind of moves the Brewers end up making. Now, expectations-wise, I'm not looking for a major splash. I mean, last year going into this, we kind of figured, hey, Devin Williams is probably going to get traded here or very shortly after. And ultimately, he did get traded very shortly after the winter meetings. And I know I talked, kind of on yesterday's show about, hey, Devin Williams, someone suggested he could come back to the Brewers. I recorded that, and then, very shortly after that, he ends up ultimately signing with the New York Mets. So, I was right in saying that he was not going to be coming back to the Brewers, and I would expect him to get a multi-year deal. Sure enough, he did. 3 years, $51 million with the New York Mets. So, congrats, Devin. A year ago, you were giving up a home run to Pete Alonso and the Mets to allow them to advance in the playoffs and eliminate the Brewers. And now a year later, you joined them. Interesting. No, he didn't do that on purpose, but, saltiness sometimes that happens. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of activity at the winter meetings. I'm not sure how active the Brewers are going to be. I'm not expecting them to be super active, going after the big name guys, walking away with something huge. I'm not expecting it, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. Matt Arnold very well could have some tricks up his sleeve. I mean, he's done that before, making moves that you don't necessarily expect, and then all of a sudden, out of left field, bam, it gets done. Remember the William Contreras trade a couple of years ago, his first offseason? All of a sudden, there was really kind of nothing on that, on the Brewers being involved, and it's like, maybe a catcher, and all of a sudden, bam, William Contreras? What? How'd he get himself in there? We never heard anything about that. All of a sudden, it was done, and Matt Arnold, got to give credit to him. Fantastic move. But he had that trick up his sleeve. So could he have another one this offseason? And if he does, what could it be? And that's someone where I want to look at here for our trade target on the show today. And that is Alec Bohm of the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, we talked about him a little bit last year, not on the show because the show wasn't around last year. But he was talked about last year as someone who could be a trade candidate. Phillies potentially looking to move on. Ultimately, they kept him for this year. And, he did okay. He kind of moved back in a couple of different areas. The strikeout rates, the walk rate all kind of regressed a little bit. The power numbers regressed a little bit. Just 11 home runs this year in 120 games. But he hit 287. Had a 331 on base, 102 OPS plus, so still an above league average bat, playing mostly third base, some first. Still can provide some pop, but not as much of a run producer this year. Played in only 120 games. He did deal with a little bit of injury as well, but still, a 1.5 WAR player on Baseball Reference. So still can be a fairly productive guy, and he's heading into his last year of arbitration. So it's just 1 year of team control. He's projected to earn just over $10 million this year, which is going to be a little bit on the pricey side for the Milwaukee Brewers because, as we've also talked about previously, they are kind of concerned about their payroll. There's those rumors, which again, the Brewers are always concerned about their payroll. They're always looking at it. They don't have blank checks from Mark Attanasio just pouring in like the Los Angeles Dodgers do. So they're going to have to be conscious of that. But also, Alec Bohm could be a difference maker. I mean, you could view him as an upgrade over Caleb Durbin. He could provide a little bit more pop into that lineup. Not necessarily a ton. He's not the biggest home run hitter. In his career, Alec Bohm, I mean, the best season he had home run wise was 20 home runs back in 2023. So he's been kind of more that 10 to 20 range in terms of homers. Not necessarily the 20 to 25 or 20 to 30 type range for him. So not the largest power improvement, but still some good power there, and also the on base skills. I mean, he hits for a very high average. A career 279 hitter. You don't have too many of those nowadays. So I think that's another big positive in his category as well, because the Brewers do like guys who can just get themselves on base, who can make contact. It's not necessarily about the power for the Brewers. Now, again, we also talked previously about their need for a bit more power. So, they could stand to add a little bit more juice. And Bohm does raise the ceiling, I think, a little bit over Caleb Durbin at third base. But, the Brewers do also kind of like what they have. And Caleb Durbin is cheap. Caleb Durbin is going to be on a league minimum deal. And Alec Bohm is going to cost you $10 million in salary. Plus, it's going to cost you at least a little bit in terms of prospects in order to get him. And it's only 1 year of team control. And the Phillies could be looking to move him, and they may not have a ton of leverage depending on who they sign, what they end up doing at that third base spot. So he could be available for, a buy low opportunity, and I think the Brewers do like buy low opportunities. Again, even though the salary is north of $10 million in all likelihood once arbitration gets figured out for him. But it'd be a 1 year kind of shorter term deal, so the Brewers wouldn't necessarily have to give up a ton. They prefer, if they're giving up prospects, they generally prefer getting some long-term control over guys, but that's also for kind of their top-tier prospects. I don't think Alec Bohm's going to cost you the top-tier prospects that maybe Philly once thought he was. So it might be a bit less of a concern for the Milwaukee Brewers. But ESPN, Jeff Passan, they came out with their top 25 trade candidates of the offseason, and on there was Alec Bohm, and listed as one of the possible fits was the Milwaukee Brewers. He was the only trade target on that 25 trade candidate list. He was the only one that the Brewers were listed as a possible fit for. So that's where you kind of look at him. It's like, okay, well, maybe this does make some sense if the Brewers are looking for an upgrade over Caleb Durbin at third base. And, I mean, Durbin, he finished third in Rookie of the Year voting. They don't necessarily have to upgrade off of him. I think they like Durbin quite a bit, so they'd like to see him, continue to grow. Maybe they can move him into that backup, utility spot, playing third, playing some second, maybe playing short in a pinch if Joey Ortiz continues to struggle before Cooper Pratt can be ready next season. So maybe they could go that route and try and push Durbin into more of a part-time super utility kind of role, because Pat Murphy likes him, but still raising the ceiling. It's Matt Arnold's job to put together the best possible team, and perhaps Alec Bohm could represent an improvement over there at third base at a fairly decent cost for the Brewers, one that wouldn't be necessarily prohibitive for them. So that's a possibility to perhaps keep in mind here as the winter meetings are coming up. And also at these winter meetings, we're going to have a Hall of Fame vote. The Veterans Committee, the modern era baseball committee, they're going to vote on 8 candidates for the Hall of Fame, including Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, a couple of the steroid guys, and a couple of other players. And so on this panel, it's a 16-member panel that votes on these 8 candidates, and you have to get 75% of the vote. So 12 members of the panel have to vote yes on a player to be elected to the Hall of Fame. And on this panel, you have 3 Brewers of the 16-member board. You have Robin Yount for the players, Brewers legend. You also have Mark Attanasio on that board, and you got former Brewers GM Doug Melvin. So you got 3 guys with some long-standing ties to the Brewers organization that are going to be voting on this panel. What does that mean for, guys like Don Mattingly? What does that mean for Barry Bonds? Uh, who's to say? I think a lot of, I don't think Bonds is getting in, if I'm being honest, because a lot of those Hall of Famers, they don't really want the juiced guys around, especially kind of the obvious ones like Bonds. They had a chance before to elect Bonds to the Hall of Fame on this Veterans Committee. This is the second time Bonds and Clemens have been on the Veterans Committee, and they got nowhere close to being elected the first time. So I would imagine it's not going to change too much for the second time. So, but what I do think it might be indicative of is that Gary Sheffield is not going to get in. I think that's what it may have a more of a stance on, because Gary Sheffield is someone who does have Brewers ties, and Gary Sheffield is someone who intentionally made errors to get himself out of town because he did not want to be in Milwaukee. He wanted out. Him and the organization did not get along. So he did everything he could to burn the bridge on his way out the door, pulling a Lane Kiffin in some sense, burning the bridge as he's going. So, Gary Sheffield, he also had some of the, steroid, issues as well, I believe, having those accusations against him. Because, he had 500 home runs. He had some really good stats. But, the intentional errors. Robin Yount was there for that. So I would have to imagine he's not getting Robin Yount's vote. Mark Attanasio wasn't there for that time. Doug Melvin wasn't there in Milwaukee for that time. But, there is kind of a long-standing disdain for Gary Sheffield and in Milwaukee, so I'd have to imagine that doesn't bode super well for his tenure. Because if all three of those guys vote no, he only has room for one other person to vote no on his candidacy, and then he is done. And that's it. He's not getting elected. If two more people outside of that vote no, then he's not going to get elected to the Hall of Fame. So, we got that. That's going to be coming out during the winter meetings, and those three pieces of Brewers personnel, Brewers history are going to be a big part of that. And now kind of moving on to one of the younger pieces of Brewers personnel here, and that is Jesus Made. And Jesus Made was named by MLB.com as the best 18-year-old prospect in all of baseball right now. They kind of look through like every single year, who's the best 16-year-old, who's the best 17-year-old, 18, 19, 20. Go down the age group, who's the best at that age group, and Jesus Made, unsurprisingly, named the best 18-year-old prospect. He has just shot out of a cannon here in terms of prospect status, and he has already risen to Double-A as an 18-year-old, which is just incredible. The Brewers appear to have found another Jackson Chourio, this one that plays on the dirt, actually plays on the infield. Chourio, you look at it as almost a once-in-a-generation type talent to come out of Latin America and, come into a farm system and change an organization. And the Brewers appear to have found two of them within 3 years of each other, which is just incredible. So Made is certainly going to be a name to watch going forward. He could be the shortstop of the future in Milwaukee. It's going to take about another year, I think, for him to get there. He seems to be pacing exactly on the Jackson Chourio track. Because Chourio, in his second full pro year, he ended up, making it to Double-A for like that last week of the season, that postseason push, doing super well. So I would imagine he spends almost all of next year in Double-A, Jesus Made, and then, maybe a late promotion to Triple-A. And then you start looking at, okay, when can he make this roster? And maybe, just maybe, next offseason they sign him to a team-friendly long-term extension. That would certainly be nice to see. But named the top 18-year-old prospect in all of baseball by MLB.com. So congrats to Jesus Made. Again, the future is so bright in Milwaukee with the farm system that they have, the pipeline of prospects they're bringing in from Venezuela, from the Dominican Republic, how well they do in the draft. Even when you lose guys to free agency, even when maybe you have to trade a Freddie Peralta or you lose a Willy Adames, you've got studs coming up through the system to help replenish the roster and keep this team continually competitive year in and year out. And Jesus Made appears to be part of that next wave. So very exciting times for the Brewers as well with him. So That'll do it for this show. Again, stay tuned, hit that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Brewers Daily. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of news coming out here over the next couple of days in Major League Baseball as the winter meetings are approaching, and we'll have you covered on it. And we'll be down there in Orlando, so looking forward to that. And we'll have a great time. And again, we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Brewers Daily.